What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes reporting for duty here with one of our favorites, Big John McCarthy, a legendary figure in our sport. He helped co-create the rules of mixed martial arts now, the unified rules of mixed martial arts. He's been, of course, a Hall of Fame referee. He's been a color commentator, and he's been recently working with PFL behind the scenes, kind of like those NFL referees, those wizards, right, that tell you yes or no, foul or no, do this, do that. I kind of really enjoyed that role. Weighing in podcast. And he's also got a seminar coming up for those of you that would like to learn how to judge or ref in the future. We'll talk about that in a sec. But John, what will be your role in 2025 with PFL? Same thing you're doing now? How does this work? I only ask because we heard that when Bellator came over to the PFL, 1 year of they were going to kind of do their own thing, and then all of a sudden maybe it all becomes one conglomerate. What can you tell us?
As far as what the entire thing is going to happen with Bellator, I honestly don't know, but I know that I still have a contract that goes with the PFL, and they'll put me on for a couple of shows that they want, so I'll be working with them, but I can also work with other people too, so I'm going to be doing some of that.
Did you like being a rules analyst, like how Mike Pereira does it for the NFL, and a few others do it?
Look, I gotta be honest. The PFL set me up with a thing at my house, and it was great because if there's one thing I can't stand, I hate flying now. I've flown too many places all over the world too many times, and I hate getting on airplanes, and I hate airports, and so it was fantastic as far as how easy it was for my life and my lifestyle. I was able to, spend a day working on PFL stuff, then do the show, and then, be away from it. And I didn't have to fly home or any of that. So it was awesome. And if it continues on, great. If it doesn't, no hard feelings. It's all good. And, the best of luck to them. I hope that they make good decisions. I'm not too sure as I look at it just from, the bleacher seats. I look, and when you're not putting out shows or at least dates for shows, that's not a good sign for a company. And Bellator has got only one date. That's, a show in January. It's
the champs versus champs.
Yeah, it's got some good fights, but it's the only one that you see. And so that's never a good thing. And there's already been fights that were taken off. Nemkov was supposed to fight against, they had put Corey Anderson in there to fight him for a third time. They pulled that. So I don't know what's going on with it, but it's never good when there's not dates out there. So we'll see.
John, since you said it, hey, I'm free to work with others, and I enjoy you in this role. And obviously the NBA, English Premier League, NFL, they believe in this too. Could you do this for the UFC?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if the UFC would want me, but yeah, I could do it with the UFC. And I'm being honest, I think it's something the UFC needs. They have too many times that their commentators are unsure about what is going on or what should be done. And that's not their fault. It's their commentators are there to explain, the ins and outs of fighting to the fans. To sit there and expect them to know all the rules and what the mechanics of the referee is and what they need, they can't do that. So, they have Dean Thomas kind of off to the side as the coach. I do think they need, and I'm not saying it's me, but they need somebody there to absolutely clear things up for the fans when they are, in a situation that the time has been stopped, the foul has occurred or something like that, and gives the correct information about what's occurring and where they can go with what has happened.
I think we're on to something. I would like to see that. And it looks like you'd be open to it. Just to clarify, all that stuff with you in the UFC in the past, I mean, I thought that was like 10 years ago. I remember before you were reffing their fights. It was great to see you back in Nevada and California. Do you still feel like there's some tension there? Because I would love to see it. To the credit of the announcers, they've gotten better at it. But yeah, there's times where they're like tongue-tied.
Yeah.
They don't know. They'll go to Ratner if he's there, and sometimes he's cleared a few things up, or Dean or whatever. But I think we'd like to see somebody who's memorized the book, co-written the book. The sport needs to evolve, and that'd be tremendous.
No, it would. I have absolute nothing but good feelings about the UFC, and I love the UFC. I'm not going to sit here. I have the podcast, and there's times I have to go, I don't agree with them, but that's just my opinion, and that's not hard feelings. There's times when they're going to make a business decision, and as a fan, I don't like the business decision. I want to see the fight I want to see or whatever's going to happen. So,
Right.
you're always going to have that. But no, I still talk with Mark Ratner at the UFC. I talk with a lot of people there, and I still love, I love what they're doing. And you look, they're right now, thank God for the UFC, because they're the one putting on shows all the time. Obviously not until 2025. Now they finally had their last one, but they've been just on fire. So
How do you think the new rules have come along now? Because as of November, we can now knee a downed opponent. We no longer have the.
No, you can't knee a downed opponent. That's just not true. See, now is why you need that guy to explain this to
I messed up. You can't. Yeah. You can't play the 3-point stance or the knuckles, the hand, the flat hand, or nothing like that. You have to have an elbow, a shin, a knee, the actual knee. So I worded that wrong. But yeah.
Yep.
What do you think now of these new rules in effect?
Well, I kind of wrote that rules. I kind of like it. There's people that may not, and that's okay. But we needed to do something. There were several fights that occurred pretty quick. One was Evloev against Arnold Allen, and Mark Goddard was the referee, and that was a situation with people are seeing a fighter that a lot of people are going to say that looks down, but Mark Goddard's not doing anything about it because the guy's playing the game with the rule, and you can't have that. And I said it forever because look, when we first made the rules back in 2001, as far as the unified rules, and we were going to go over a down fighter, I wasn't smart enough to figure out, fighters are going to play with this rule and they're going to make it difficult. So we tried to make it easy for the boxing, for boxing commissions, since the commissions were comfortable with boxing. If I made it the same, a boxer who is down is when any part of his body other than his soles of his feet touch the ground. And so we said, okay, well, we'll do the same. So any part of the fighter's body touches the ground, they become a grounded fighter. They cannot be kneed or kicked to the head or face. And immediately I had a fight where I had a fighter who took their index finger and stuck it to the ground and picked it up, stuck it to the ground and picked it up. And I went, son of a bitch. I knew right away, oh, this is a problem. And so then I came up with, hey, nope, you can't do that, which was just me saying it wasn't written. And I said, you have to bear weight on your hand. I want to see the pressure on your hand, showing that you want to be a down fighter. And so I started saying that to every fighter, in the rules, meaning in the back and stuff. And it worked to a point, but it was never good because what I said was bearing weight may not have been the same as what the next referee said. If Herb said it different, or Dan Mergulata said it, or Goddard said it different, you didn't have a complete same approach to everything. And so it was always a problem. We tried to change it in 2016 and there was too much involvement with commissions not getting along and stuff. So this was the latest one. The UFC wanted it. They knew it was a problem for their product. And so we came up and, I thought it was pretty, to write it as simple as possible was the best. And I looked at, an NFL running back, when they have the ball, they can put their hand to the ground, but they're not down. But any other part of their body that touches the ground, their elbow, their shin, their knee, their butt, their back, they are a down person at that point. So same we're going to do with fighters. You can have both hands on the ground and someone can now knee you in the head because you're not down. You're trying to hold yourself up. That's not a grounded position. If you want to be in a grounded position, put your knee down to the ground, put your hands up to protect your face. You're a grounded fighter. You cannot be at least kneed or kicked to the head.
John, when you watch fights, if we watch the NFL and some of the commentators, let's just say Troy Aikman is one of the commentators, a lot of times he's going to gravitate to the quarterback and what the quarterback's doing.
Sure.
When you're watching fights, have you gotten to the point where you could just sit back and watch it as a fan? Or is there a little part of you where your eyes are drifting off going, where's this guy standing? Why is he in that position?
Oh, I do it all the time.
You have fun?
Oh, I do. No, I do it all the time. I'm always looking and going, why are you standing there? Because it's a position where I know you're going to miss certain things because you've put yourself out of position or you're too far away from the fighter. So if one fighter also now lands a shot, I know that you're going to be that guy running across when you should have been 3 steps closer, and it would have put you in a lot better position to be able to take care of the fighter. You're always going to have that. And I'm also in that position where I have to judge the fights. So I don't look at it the same as a fan. I'm trying to sit there and deviate between who's landing the more as far as volume, who's landing the heavier shots, what's going on in the fight. So I always look at a fight kind of completely different than the fan, but it doesn't matter. I still love them, and so it's always a pleasure just to watch.
Going back to the NFL, rules change all the time, major ones. Now we have this dynamic kickoff, right? They have a long history,
It
but
sucks, by the
rules
way.
are
Go ahead and say it,
constantly.
George. What was
It
that?
sucks. That new
It's
kickoff
horrible.
sucks.
Thank you. It
It's
is
terrible.
ruined.
And then you got to tell them,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna do an
We're gonna
onside
do an
kick.
onside kick.
Yeah,
It's
we
like,
can't surprise you guys. Like,
so what happened like in the Super Bowl with the Colts and the Saints can never happen again. And you look and you go, you took some of the
they
excitement. Yeah.
strangled the fun out of special teams in that regard, man.
Yeah, I agree.
I did. But things are constantly changing. And these new rule changes that you have, I think a lot of people applauded them. We all liked it. And first thing we're going to say is, well, why didn't they do it sooner, right? But at this point, where you're at with the rules and the way they work, can you at least maybe give us like a percentage where you could say, I think we're 90% there to what would be kind of almost the perfect scenario for how we judge fights and how the rules and regulations go?
I think you basically hit that number close. 85 to 90% we're there. There's always things that you could change, and I'm going to be honest, as a fan of the sport, even as an official, I look and say knees to the head of someone who's on the ground, not soccer kicks, is different, but knees to the head of someone on the ground can be effective in the fight. And what it can do is it keeps the defensive fighter from putting themselves in positions that they could be attacked with a knee if it was legal, but they know that they can't. So they're again utilizing rules to protect themselves instead of their skill set. You go and you watch fighters that switch organizations and go to, we'll say, Ryzen or One, and have to change. They change quickly. Demetrius Johnson was a guy, he got hurt and lost, to Moraes off of a knee when he was grounded, but learned from it and came back. And when you sit there and you look at it and people go, well, that's terrible for the fighter. What's the difference between being able to knee someone to the head if they're standing or if they're on the ground? There is no difference. And so I look at it and say, I honestly believe that knees to the head should be opened up. It would open the fight up. It would make the fights a little bit more realistic, a little more exciting at times, because anytime you give an offensive tool to the fighters, you're opening the fight up. That's why I don't like when PFL has their tournament, they've got to take away elbows. Well, you just took away an element of mixed martial arts that is an important element. And it's one that I understand why you're taking it away, but now you slowed the fight down. You made it to where people cannot be as aggressive in certain positions because it's very difficult to sometimes punch when you're on the ground because people are trying to hold wrists, where an elbow works very well. So I always like it to be opened up. So I would love to see someday knees to the head. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would like to see it. And I think it would be a good thing for the sport. There's a couple of things in there that, can be taken out. They've taken out most of the stuff. The 12-6 elbow was always ridiculous. And they finally, were able to get that out of there. So that's a good removal from the rules. The rules started off, it was 31 in 2001. I think we're down to like 26 now. So they're slowly going away. We're getting rid of them. And it's close. I think it's close to being as, truly open as you can make it. The soccer kicks to the head and things like that, I've never seen soccer kicks work or stomps work in a way unless someone was hurt. When they get hurt and they go down and they've already been hurt, then it works. But if someone's not hurt, it doesn't work for them. So those are ones that you can stay away from. I don't have a problem with that.
We had a little bit of a spirited debate on our show and with another fighter about a question I'm about to ask you. So I'm curious because we talked about the evolution of rules. Now I want to talk about the evolution of the game itself. We asked Benil Dariush, what percentage of the UFC male roster do you believe could win UFC 1? And he said almost all of them. And I kind of threw in the fact that, look, even if you believe that, there's just so many other intangibles, broken hands, things that can happen, right? One punch. I had it more somewhere around 75% because we have a lot of smaller guys too as well.
Sure.
And some of those guys were pretty damn big, right? Plus, you got to win 3 fights. So I'm just curious, in your opinion, like what percentage today do you think could win UFC 1?
Man, if you're talking about the entire UFC roster, that's a lot of humanity there. And yes, you do have some guys that are on the small side, but man, I'll tell you what, I'm going to agree with Beneil just about close. I would say 97% would win UFC 1 with the skill set and the knowledge that they now have 30 some years later on how to fight and how to do things within mixed martial arts. Yes, I'm going to say it's somewhere in the 97 to 98 percentile.
Interesting. All right.
You gotta be honest about this thing and look and go, those guys back in that first one, Art Davie, who was the guy who created it, used to call him, he said those guys were the X1 pilots, like Chuck Yeager was the first to Chuck Yeager was the first to break the sound barrier. And you got to look, and when you look at it, when Chuck Yeager was in that rocket plane, a lot of scientists had told him that if you try to break the sound barrier, as soon as you get to that speed, this plane is going to just disintegrate. And you look and you go, he was brave enough to say, okay, let's see. And he went out and did it. Well, it's the same thing with those guys. Those guys were not, there was one guy that was truly prepared to fight that night the way that it was supposed to be fought. And that was Hoist. But he was using just basically one skill set, his grappling. And he understood how to use elbows on the ground. He understood how to use his guard. He understood all of it, where the other guys were not. They were looking at it like their specific skill set was going to take them through everything. And it was with today's fighters, they're so good everywhere goes. I mean, we don't give them enough credit for how good they are. And it's a matter of their ability to, because part of fighting, and it's what I love about, is the defense part and your ability to move and laterally escape everything that your opponent is trying to offensively do to you, and you just frustrate them and wear them down. Even the littler guys, the 100, you take a look at some of the 135 pounders out there today. Now 125, Pantoja, he's as tough and good as you can get, and he wouldn't weigh 125 if he's fighting a bigger guy anyways. It was an open weight, so no one had, no one's going to step on the scale. So he wouldn't weigh 125. We'll say he weighs 150. He would have a chance. He would have a good chance because he's that talented.
I actually not butted heads, but we were on opposite sides with Beneil Dariush, although headbutting was allowed back then.
That's okay. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So what I told him was, and I took a little slack from our YouTube audience. I told him I didn't think Cron Gracie could win UFC 1. Now, why did I pick him? Because he recently fought. He recently fought poorly.
Yeah, good
and
price.
there's a relationship between him and the uncle from UFC 1. So he was kind of fresh on my head. I didn't mean to pick on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's probably a few other lighter weight fighters that I probably wouldn't take them. I don't know. Anyway, he said, nope, Cron knows enough jiu-jitsu. He's an Abu Dhabi champion. I go, I get it, Beneil, but 3 times in one night. And at the same time, he shows me a little bit that unlike his uncle in the fights, he seems like he at some point either breaks, quits, phones it in. I don't know. That's what I started seeing from him, flopping back and trying to, pull guard or whatever. And to do that 3 times in one night, plus he's 145, probably rehydrated at 170, I'll give him. Okay. Hoist was about 180, 6'1". Cron's about, I'm guessing 5'8" or something like that. He doesn't look like one of the taller guys. Yeah. And size had to have mattered, and also not breaking, like kind of how I've seen him. So I disagreed, but do you think Cron could do it? Maybe you can correct me.
Like Cron, and it's one of the things that's sad about when Cron came to the UFC. You watched him when he got someone to the ground in Alex Caceres, and you saw exactly what he can do. And there's no way that anyone can win in the UFC with one specific set of skills anymore against a good fighter. You can win on the regionals, and you can do that, being a jiu-jitsu guy and just being really good at your jiu-jitsu and being able to get somebody to the ground and utilize your skill set. Yeah, on the regional scene, your grassroots, you're gonna be able to win fights. You're not going to win fights in the UFC, not with that. And it was it was sad. You know, I've known Cron since he was a baby, you know, and I mean a baby. And he's a good person, but you know, he has not evolved. You know, even when he was in Japan, he was dirty boxing a lot. And he wasn't even getting in close to dirty box with Bryce. And, you know, and I thought Bryce, you know, I thought Bryce's wrestling was going to be better than Cron's. I thought his stand-up would be better. I thought on the ground, well, look, if you're going to be honest, you know, who's the better jiu-jitsu guy? Well, it's Cron. You know, you can't go with Bryce. But Bryce is, you know, fought better talent basically overall, you know, in his career. And you look and I go, could Cron win UFC 1? Yeah. At the level of his jiu-jitsu and what he could do, because people didn't understand how to, you know, Bryce knew how to stop what Cron was trying to do. You know, Bryce kept squaring himself up. He kept, you know, his hands on biceps. He did when you saw Cron trying to extend his guard, you saw Bryce pulling him in. He just did everything defensively as far as, oh, you think you're going to do that? No, I'm going to squash it and I'm going to now hit you one. And then he went back to, you know, and he kept on just repeating that process, you know, and then when he, you know, when Bryce basically ended the fight, look, it was the slam that hurt Cron. And it was done by Bryce on purposefully, as far as he moved himself. He took and he changed that angle to bring his head down, which was smart. You know, I do not blame him at all. I thought it was a smart move. And then he finished it off with the elbows. But yeah, you know, jiu-jitsu has changed to a point, but the basics are always going to be the basics. And Cron is good enough at that compared to people in UFC 1. Not one of them, except for Hoist, knew anything about it, truthfully. You know, Ken Shamrock knew grappling. He knew leg locks. He knew some submissions, but not in the way that a Cron Gracie is able to apply it. And so he had to learn and get himself up to speed with what Cron would be doing. So he would catch him in that too. And so, yeah, I honestly think Cron would win at UFC 1.
Really? Okay, so I know he beats Jimerson. He could probably take Jimerson down, pull out a Sharpie, sign Cron Gracie on his one glove, and still beat him. Yeah. You say he beats Shamrock. Does he beat Gerard Gordeau? 6'5", big guy, but has no knowledge of jiu-jitsu. I get it, but
this is the problem. You're looking at it now with how much trouble fighters have in taking other fighters down to the ground now in today's mixed martial arts. Gerard Gordeau had no, you know, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I trained with Hoist during that time all the time. I was one of his training partners to get him ready for it. And his takedowns were not great. You know, he had certain, you know, he tried foot sweeps. He would try to, you know, wrap himself and just, you know, work himself to your back step, but he wasn't a wrestler. He wasn't a good, you know, he couldn't double leg you. He would try to body lock you and drag you. And Cron does the same thing. And so Cron would have gotten Gerard down because Gerard had no, you know, takedown defense at all. So as soon as Cron was able to close the gap, could Gerard have knocked him out? Yes, could have. And he could have knocked Hoist out. But when he isn't able to do that and they get that clinch at that time with the knowledge that he had, he would have been in trouble.
Does he beat Jason DeLucia in UFC 2?
Yes, he beat. So and the reason why? Well, the reason why is this.
Well, DeLucia did go and did get, I think, subbed at one of those Gracie challenges. Now that I think about it.
Well, yeah, he did, and he was actually kind of switching himself over from being a guy that really was just a, you know, predominant stand-up fighter. He was trying to learn jiu-jitsu, and so he was comfortable with going to the ground, thinking that he could stop stuff, and he would not have been comfortable with. Look, when you talk about winning, you know, what Cron has won as a jiu-jitsu competitor, he's up there as far as he's won some of the biggest tournaments there are, and there's no way that Jason could have stopped what he did.
UFC 2 was Minoki Ichihara, then Jason DeLucia. The last two fights, because remember, they went 4 rounds in UFC 2. He would have had to beat, I'm just saying, if we install him instead of Hoist, he would have had to beat Remco Pardo and Pat Smith. Does he do it, John?
I don't know with Remco. You know, it's a tough one. You know, dude. But Remco wearing the gi helps him because he's used to the gi, and that's what helped Hoist. You know, one of the things that, and this is, it's just my opinion, but it's the truth since I've known Hoist for so long. People look at Hoist and they do the whole thing of, oh, he's skinny, he's weak, he's this and that. First off, Hoist is not weak. He is physically, not a super, strong guy, but he's strong enough. He's got very strong legs. The thing that Hoist does have, he's got a I will never quit mentality.
Yeah.
That other people don't have. And I can't tell you that Cron has that same mentality. I will tell you, if you matched Hoist's jiu-jitsu against Cron's, Cron wins.
Right.
I will tell you mentally, Hoist is as tough an individual as you will find. He will never quit. He will, he'll die before he quits. And people will say, well, he quit against, Sakuraba. No, it was a break between, a 90-minute fight, and he had a broken leg, and he's just telling his brother, hey, well, my leg's broken, but I'll go back out. And his brother threw in the towel. So it wasn't Hoist that quit. It was his brothers and father saying, no, you're not going back out.
All right. You got some.
You don't agree with me though. That's okay.
No. I you've kind of really added to what Benny said, and I think you've gotten me to realize that. I mean, of course, I feel like he could have. I'm just not sure he would have. But could he have? Yeah, but I just know that he's not as big of a guy. And again, the things that I've seen in the Swanson fight and this other fight, I'm not calling the kid a quitter or anything, but he just seems like a one-trick pony. And he also seems ready to phone it in when it's time to phone it in. Like he doesn't. You could see the coaches yelling, and saying, don't pull guard, whatever you do, and he's actually doing it. So to me, it tells me I just want this to end. I don't think he wanted it to end with that horrific headache he probably went home with.
No, but one of the things you're talking about, that there are certain,
and Hoist didn't look like a quitter, man. That Harold Howard fight, we're going back 30 years, but that Harold Howard fight,
he never fought Harold.
He wanted to be out there, is what I'm saying.
Oh, look at, I was the reason
there.
I was the reason that
took a lot out of him.
Oh yeah, I was the reason that. And I will tell you, and people, it's so hard for someone to understand. I am on my grandson's, on my grandchildren's lives. That was the hottest place I've ever been in my life, as far as how hot it was in that arena. It was 100 degrees outside with 100% humidity, and inside they had stuffed 6,000 people in a 4,000 seat arena.
This was McNichols Arena, or
no? This was I want to say the Grady Cole Arena in North Carolina, and it was absolutely horrendous with the lights. I will tell you, it was probably 165 degrees in that octagon. What? It was that hot. It was brutal. Okay, and you can look at some of the fighters and see how wet they are during it, and the sweat is just coming off him. Ken Shamrock, yeah, I know he says that, hey, when Hoist couldn't go, that was why I was there, and so he didn't continue on. But he had put out a lot of energy, and he was depleted. He was hurting, all of those guys, and that's why Steve Chenham came in and won it, because he was the only guy that it had actually gotten a little bit cooler, because it was late at night at that point, so it had cooled a little bit down.
Plus, he's used to heat. He's a firefighter, so he was probably thinking, this ain't so bad.
Yeah, he was an Omaha cop. But
cop. Shit, yeah. I'm blowing everything. I'm messing everything.
That's all right. Here. But he was, you look, and so when Hoist came out, I knew, looking at him, I said, and I looked, and I would talk to him. I would talk to, the other fighter. And so I go over to Hoist, and I said, hey, are you ready? And he looks, and he kind of is like trying to find me. And I said, can you see me? Right. And he goes, I only see white. And I said, I told Jorge, hey, come up here. I go, he cannot fight. And he goes, yeah, he'll be fine. I said, he cannot fight. And so this is all happening while.
Time out. And isn't Helio there too?
Helio is there too.
So tell us about that.
But Elio doesn't understand what I'm saying. Elio only really spoke very little English. So he's, they're trying to listen. And he's just seeing me and Horion talk. And that's while, Rich Goins is the announcer. He's starting to announce, and he's announcing the fighters. And it gets to the point I said, hey, you got to throw in the towel. He's been announced. You cannot let your brother fight. And Horion throws in the towel, and that's why he got the loss. The loss was because of me, because I was the one saying, hey, he can't see, he can't fight. You can't put him out there. And Harold Howard, he would have hurt him. because
Dude,
you
Harold
don't put, you
Howard
don't
looked
put a,
like he was ready to destroy
you don't put a
that
blind
guy.
man out.
Believe me,
Yeah.
Dr. Denham.
Yeah, you don't put blind men out in fights.
Think about that, folks. This is historical in a sense because Helio was involved in fights where he got pushed to the brink as well.
3 hours
Probably
and 43
in
minutes.
Rio de Janeiro, where it gets just as hot as where John was
Yeah.
in North Carolina. So I wonder if he's thinking, we don't quit in this family, we go. And but that conversation, what all took place in like 30 seconds? How long was that little breakdown?
Yeah, it was about a 30 to 45 second whole thing, and it was one of those that you looked and you go, man, you say you care about your brother, show me, because if you let him fight right now, you're telling me you don't, because I know they had taken him in the back and shoved him in a shower, trying to get him cooled down from the chemo thing, because he had to work hard, and I don't think Hoist has ever said. Hoist had a neck injury going into that, so his training was not what it was for the other ones. He was not in the same condition. He had to try to avoid getting hurt to get himself to that fight. So
Joe Son, the cross. I'm thinking of all these things.
Oh, Joe, that whole thing, and God bless. Kimo did a great job, because Kimo had been out in living in California, and he had gone to a couple of jiu-jitsu places. One was a guy named Pedro Carvalho, who was at the time that he came to the States, I think he was a purple belt. All of a sudden he was a black belt, but he had wanted to do a fight with him, and was trying to figure out, okay, what is this jiu-jitsu stuff that these guys are doing, so I have an idea. But just honestly, if he didn't have that ponytail, because hair pulling was allowed, if he didn't have that ponytail, he might have won that fight.
That's nuts, man. I love this stuff. All right, so John, you're going to be spraying your wisdom in February at the American Top Team Gym. Can you talk about that a little bit? There's going to be a ref course, a judging course, and then a hybrid course with both spread out across 3 days, February 7th through the 9th. And folks, look right there where it says 20% if you order this package by
Christmas time, trying to give a Christmas break.
Yeah. And so all of you aspiring judges or refs, this is your chance to learn from the best. Talk about this, John. How many times have you done this now? Is this like your 30th version, or you do this like once or twice a year, right?
I normally put this when I had my own gym, I used to put it on probably 4 times a year. And then I would travel usually up into Canada. Canada always has a commission that has to have a training, and so I would go and do it up there. So I was doing it about 5 times a year. Now I try to do it 2 times a year, or if that, I do it usually near the International Fight Week with the UFC, and I'll do it at Randy Couture's gym, Extreme Couture. But this was an opportunity that Dan Lambert gave me to try and see on the East Coast. Hey, do people want to learn? There's a ton of people involved in MMA in Florida and stuff. And the whole point is, not everyone is going to be meant to be a referee or a judge in MMA. But the one thing that I will guarantee you is you will walk out of that 3-day course knowing way more about what the fighters should be doing, what the officials should be doing, what the judges are actually looking for, all of it. And there's people that want to become referees and stuff, and I've had guys that very well, like Frank Trigg, ex-fighters. I've had a ton of ex-fighters go through the course and use it to try to become referees in the sport. And it's something that it's all about. I look at it, it's all about learning. I know everyone wants to pass. It's never going to be where everyone passes. There's too many tests and things to do, but I always look at it as, hey, are you smarter now about the sport after these 3 days than you were when you walked in here? Did you learn more than you ever thought you would? And as long as you can say, hey, I learned more than I ever thought, that's what my goal is. I just want to clarify things for people. There's a lot of bad information that goes on out there. I get guys all the time that come and say, well, this is what I was told in this in this ABC course. And I go, that is absolutely false. Whoever is telling you that is wrong. I don't know. Are you sure they said it that way? And okay, well, let's clear it and make sure we know exactly what you're allowed to do, how you can do it, why you do it this way. and I break everything down, and there's never a question that I don't answer. I'll answer every question. I'll stay as late as it takes to answer all those questions until everyone gets tired of listening to me. But the course itself it's fun. People like it. We put real fighters out there. We have you go through. If you're going to be a judge, you are watching a ton of fights. Some of them you've seen, some of them you have not, and you're judging them. And now you're having to go through and explain your score and why you scored it a certain way and does it match the criteria. And you get this whole idea of exactly what judges have to look at, how difficult it is, and you get a better understanding of, well, it's not exactly like what the UFC commentators, it's not exactly what Dominic Cruz said or Michael Bisping said or Dan Cormier said or Joe Rogan said. It's a little bit different because it's not about flash. It's about function and being effective. And effect in the fight is everything. And we go through that and how to pick that out. You're going to get these punch stats that are out there all the time. The UFC puts them out. PFL puts them out. And it's, this guy landed 29 shots while this guy landed 19. Well, that doesn't mean that guy wins the fight, because if the 19 were a lot harder than the 29, that guy's going to win the round. And those are the kind of things that we go through. So I always try to tell people, look, it's not an easy course, but it is absolutely a fun course. And if you want to become an official, it's the best way to start. You can take a look at guys that are, working today. Mike Beltran, Mike was a student of mine, Mark Smith. All of these guys are guys that have gone through the course, taken it, passed it, and become very successful at what they do.
So if I want to be a judge, I can't just go to the Nevada Commission and go, I'd like to be a judge. They'll ask me.
Well, you can. They're not going to let you.
So we have to pass one of your courses, or do they have to also pass through anything that they give them as well? How does that work for anyone that's really aspiring?
No, there are certain courses that the athletic commissions will look at and say, okay, you've gone through that course. That's telling me something. But again, and this is what needs to be understood. Because you pass a course doesn't mean, and you get a lot of people think, oh, because I passed a course, I can go to the UFC. No, it's not going to happen. I want everyone to think about football. Look at the NFL, look at Major League Baseball, look at the NBA. Do you think those guys take a course and all of a sudden are put on the field of the Patriots versus the Jets? That's not the way it goes. You want to be in that position where you start working amateur fights and you start learning, because every time you step in the cage, you're going to learn something, and you're going to figure out, okay, this is what I was told. Okay, yeah, it's working for me doing it this way. Okay, I understand why I'm supposed to be here. And all those things, you've got to make them to where they become second nature for you. It's not something you have to think about. It's something you're just automatically doing because you've done it so many times. And normally it's like in California, we go with CAMO, which is the California Mixed Martial Arts organization. If you pass my course, they will take you as an official. They'll usually start you off as an inspector, which is something that I recommended, because you need to know every aspect of the fight game if you want to be part of it. And eventually they'll start moving you into being a judge or a referee. And then it's dependent upon several things. Are you doing the right things? They're going to be grading you. They're going to be giving you an evaluation. And then you must complete somewhere in the area of 200 fights before you're even allowed to go and say, okay, I want to be part of the California State Athletic Commission. They're going to say, does he have over 200 fights? Yes, he does. Let me see what his, critiques were. And they're going to look at all that. And so all of that is stuff you need. And an NFL official starts off in Pee Wee football. That's where they start off, little kids, and you love football, so you want to be part of it. And then you move from little kids to high school, and you do high school, and then you go possibly to junior college. And then if you can get into college, or if you can go straight to the NFL, it is a journey that's going to take you the same as, in MMA. It's going to take you 10 to 15 years to get there. And you've got to be dedicated to it. You got to be always learning. You got to be humble about, when you make mistakes, don't lie about it, be honest about it. So it's a long process, but I can tell you it's a process that is well worth it. Too many people have gone through it. And, look, being an official for me was the greatest gift, basically, besides my kids, that someone's ever given me, because I was able to be part of more things, go more places, do more things than I ever thought possible.
To be fair, though, reffing a Patriots Jets game is kind of like amateur these days, right?
Damn, kind of is.
About
All
some
right.
YouTube
Okay.
comments now.
We're going
huh?
to say Lions and Eagles.
There you go.
Hey, it's been 40 minutes. I apologize for taking so long. I'm glad we
not at
covered
all,
a
man.
lot.
Let's go another 40. Let's go.
But I just got to ask you one more.
Yes, sir.
What's it like for you guys? I don't know if you've ever done this because you've judged before. What's it like when they goes 30-27 for, we'll say, Jones, George 30-27 for Jones, McCarthy 30-27 for Miocic? So these are just random names that I picked out of my head or whatever. But what I mean is the fight where 99% of the world saw it. Jones won. There's no way Miocic won. But then that other judge has the dissenting score 29-28, 30-27.
Yep.
What is it like for that judge? Have you ever been in that position?
The judge,
or have you ever been with those other guys, the judges?
Okay.
When they're in their back and they have to explain that, like, is it embarrassing? Does it shake your confidence? I know Mike Bell took 9 months off when he did the Grasso Shevchenko score, but I'm just wondering what is it like for those judges when you realize, holy shit, like it looks like I saw a whole other fight than them.
Yep.
Is there self-doubt that creeps in, or what's that like?
There's self-doubt that creeps in, and there's what people don't understand. I try to explain it to them all the time is there's a reason why they set up the judges in 3 different opposing positions. Everyone thinks that the judge is, a lot of people think the judge is scoring the fight at the end and giving all of their score. Every round is scored and immediately, if I was the referee and I was going to be picking up the scorecards, I am standing behind the first judge as that fight is just, finishing the round. And so then I'm the presence that's there. Hey, give me your card. And so they've got to do it right now. Boom. And then I'm walking to the next one. Then there's always going to be one sitting by the commission. So theirs goes in right away. So you got to figure you have, either, 5 seconds at the most, 2 seconds really to put your score down on one, or maybe 10 seconds on if you're the far judge. But there's a reason why they put them at those opposing positions. And it's partly what people don't understand is when you have a split decision, the commissions are not always upset with it based upon those 3 different positions will see a different fight. There's many times one punch determines the round in the judge's mind. And it could be that you and I are, in our seats and we're seeing it, and Goes never sees that punch. He never sees the punch that both you and I saw. And it's based upon body positions of the fighters. It's based upon the referee possibly being in the way, positioning of where the fighters are in the cage, because there's times you can't see. Now, they do put a monitor down now for the judges to look at. And I'm almost of the opinion that it's better for them to look more at the monitor unless the fight is actually right in front of them up against the cage. That's when you want to watch. It's important that the judges are cage side, because hearing is absolutely important, because you hear the shots land. One of the things that most people don't understand, that as a referee, you absolutely hear things that no one else will ever hear. And as a judge, a lot of the times what you hear is going to affect who you're going to go with based upon how hard shots landed. And you hear the impact, you hear the air going out of the fighter. These are things that you hear. So your auditory skills are absolutely needed to be effective as a judge. And so when you have that 30-27, 30-27, and then 27-30 the opposite way, the judge who's 30-27 the opposite way is right away is like, holy shit, what was it that I missed? And I'm telling you right now, if you watch the judges, you go to a UFC and they have a split decision, you will see those judges right then and there start going over the fight and talking about the fight and saying why. And you'll see, if it was, we'll say at the Apex, you'll see either Matt Valenzuela, who is the assistant, or you'll see Jeff Mullen, who is the executive director of Nevada. He'll be up talking to them saying, okay, this is the way I saw it. What was it that you saw? And they're going to start going over it, and they'll do it right then and there just to get a quick briefing on it and stuff. It'll take, a couple of minutes. But then after the whole show, they will go in the back and they will break it all down, and they will have that judge say exactly why they scored it the way they did compared to everyone else. And they've got to say it to everyone. And it's got to be reasonable, or that's when the commission starts to go, okay, you're not being reasonable in the way you're looking at the fight. You're not following the criteria. I'm not going to put you in that seat until you show me that you understand how to apply that criteria and you're looking for the right things in the fight. So look, no judge wants to be the odd person out, but sometimes I'm going to tell you the odd person out is the one that's right.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. You'll see many times you'll get, it's a close fight, and you'll see two judges going with one person because they're flashier. They do things that look smoother, look cleaner as they're throwing it. But the person that's kind of like remember Keith Jardine, the dean of mean. Okay, Keith was herky jerky in everything he did, but he was effective and he landed hard shots. And so a lot of judges wouldn't give him the credit that he deserved in the fight based upon it just didn't look good. It didn't flow well, but he was effective. And so there are many times you're going to see there could be that, that fight where the judge that's the odd person out is actually the judge that got it right.
Great chat, man. I wish you the best with
Thank you, sir.
Everything going on in February so that you can get a new crop of wise judges and referees, because obviously you all can't do it forever.
Nope.
I know you haven't done it in about a good 8 years now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, since 2018 was the last refereeing I ever did.
Yeah. So we miss you, but I know
I appreciate that
you needed to move on and everything. Thanks for the time here, John.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Anytime you're posting stuff, we'll make sure to retweet and reshare or whatever, so that you can get a full house there at American Top Team, February 7th through the 9th, folks. Check it out.
Sounds great. Look, if you ever want to go, just let me know, man. You come see what we do.
Would love that. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Cool. Take care. We'll see.
Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.